Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you in various time zones, united in our appreciation of all the various spiritual traditions. I am Swami Jyotirmayananda and serve as Director of Lotus Center for All Faiths at Satchidananda Ashram, Yogaville, Virginia. We're delighted to be a part of Interfaith Awareness Week. Some of us had the opportunity to attend the North American Interfaith Network Connect in 2017 in San Diego. Reverend Dr. Albert and his wife, Reverend Dr. Abigail, sponsored this incredible conference with 77 speakers, great food, and the generous gift of these interfaith stoles for all 250 of us. I'll kind of show you what we have, these beautiful stoles. And through their efforts, the governor of California in 2018 inaugurated the second week of August as Interfaith Awareness Week. So during this Interfaith Awareness Week presentation, we have four components of our joint program with New York Integral Yoga Interfaith, beginning with a sample of an inspiring interfaith service. Then we have a panel discussion on yoga and faith with representatives of various traditions who have also delved into the spiritual aspects of yoga. There'll be time for those tuning in to express their thoughts on their spiritual practices. And there'll be closing comments and a prayer for world peace. Now to New York for my co-host, Reverend Shankar Fern, to introduce himself and the basics of integral yoga.
Thank you, Swami Jyotirmayananda. So hello, everyone. So glad to see you all. So my name is Reverend Shankar Fern. I'm an ordained integral yoga minister. I'm also on the board of directors of the New York Integral Yoga Institute and the board of trustees for the Global Integral Yoga Ministry organization. I'm also a businessman and a family person, happily in both of those areas, and so honored to be able to do this. I have the New York Integral Yoga committees and community joined with the Yogaville organization. So we're very happy to be here. We're going to be talking about so many aspects of integral yoga, and one way to understand integral yoga easily is to know that the goal of integral yoga is to help us be easeful, peaceful, and useful, all in the aim of understanding our true self. So easeful, the body, right? A body that's relaxed, that's strong, that's healthy through hatha yoga, asanas, pranayama, and harmless vegetarian eating. That's the easeful part, easeful body. Peaceful, so our peaceful minds and hearts come through the practice of japa yoga, the repetition of mantra. Comes from the practice also of bhakti yoga, the devotion. Jnana yoga, the yoga of discerning and using the mind. And Raja yoga, the yoga of both meditation, scripture, and what's called the yamas and niyamas, which we'll hear a little bit about later on. So we're so honored and happy to be here, and we have some wonderful panelists who I'll introduce when we get to that section of our program. For now, I'm going to send it back to Swami Jyotirmayananda in Yogaville, Virginia, who's going to tell you a little bit about the structure of our program. Jyotirma?
Integral yoga's embrace of the interfaith movement began with our founder, Sri Swami Satchidananda's dedication to world peace, informed by the belief that truth is one, paths are many. So as an interfaith pioneer, Swami Satchidananda participated in many interfaith gatherings, programs, seminars, and retreats around the world until his last days in 2002. Witnessing the peace and joy experienced by those who participate in these gatherings, Swami Satchidananda was inspired to create a permanent place of peace, a shrine where all people could experience the unity of all faiths and feel at home to pray and meditate in their tradition. So this idea developed over the years and resulted in 1986 in the dedication of the Light of Truth Universal Shrine Lotus at Satchidananda Ashram, Yogaville, Virginia. Lotus is dedicated to the light of all faiths and to world peace. The shrine is built in the shape of a lotus flower, with an upper sanctuary housing altars to the various faiths, and a lower all-faith hall with displays of the different faiths. So over the years, countless spiritual seekers and groups from various paths have come to experience the profound peace in the upper sanctuary of Lotus and to appreciate the richness of the traditions as displayed in the All Faiths Hall. So the Lotus Center for All Faiths was established in 1996 to serve as the outreach arm of Lotus. Swami Satchidananda also gifted us with another Lotus, Light of Truth Universal Service. So our Light of Truth Universal Service begins with a procession of celebrants of various faiths carrying lit taper candles to a circular altar. At this interfaith altar, they light a central candle symbolic of the divine light that illuminates all faiths. So a recorded piece of ritual music is played, after which each celebrant offers a prayer from their tradition. So today, we are sharing with you a sample of our recent service at our ashram with a procession, samples of presentations from three faiths, and a recession. The three faiths selected for this presentation are Native American from indigenous traditions, Judaism from Abrahamic faiths, and Shinto from the Asian faiths. So now Nataraj will show us the 12-minute video excerpt. Native American faiths.
Let us know peace, for as long as the moon shall rise, for as long as the rivers shall flow, for as long as the sun shall shine, for as long as the grass shall grow. Let us know peace. Hey amayo anahene yo, hey amayo anahene yo. Hey amayo anahene yo, hey amayo anahene yo. Wahi ya ya na, hey 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 ho. Wahi, hey 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 ho. Wahi.
Judaism.
Eitz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba. Eitz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba. Eitz Chaim hi l'shalom. Eitz Chaim hi l'shalom. Chaim hi lama chazikim ba. Eitz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba. Eitz Chaim hi l'shalom. Eitz Chaim hi l'shalom.
Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, that we may walk the paths of the Most High. We shall beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. And none shall be afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken.
Shinto.
Harae tamae, kiyome tamae. Declaration of faith, commitment of life devotion. Keishin seikatsu no koryo. I am grateful for the blessings of the Kami and my ancestors, and will practice my faith with brightness, purity, and sincerity. I will dedicate myself to serve and benefit the world and all peoples. I will fulfill my life mission as guided by the Kami, dedicating myself with sincerity to achieve peace for the world and for my nation. From my heart, I will humbly follow and respect the Kami, praying for harmony, prosperity, and peace for all nations of the world. 世界人類が平和でありますように。世界国々が平和でありますように。私たちみんな平和な心でありますように。When we quiet our mind and pray, we feel the peaceful life of all living things. Our prayers become the energy of love and healing, embracing the earth, humanity, and all living things, and bringing all back to life. The creation of a new planet Earth begins, even when human beings forget to pray. The earth, the seas, the mountains, and all living things go on praying for the time when humanity will awaken. When we quiet our mind and pray, we feel the prayerful life of all living things. Our prayers become light, illuminating the divinity in each and every human being. At that time, the earth, humanity, and life, and all living things become one, and a new symphony of life resonates with the universe. Prayer from Symphony of Peace Prayers at Mount Fuji.
So, there are many forms an interfaith service can take. Some of us from Lotus Center for All Faiths had the opportunity to participate in the World Parliament of Religions in Toronto in 2019. And for our program, we just did a simple prayer circle. The theme was on love and compassion. And for all of us together recited the prayers from 10 different faiths. And before each faith, we had the ritual music, some of which you just heard. And it was really beautiful to come together that way, enjoying the ritual music of the faiths and reciting prayers together. So there's many forms services or prayer circles can take. And you don't even have to be a clergy. If you have an affinity for a faith, that's enough to represent a faith, basically. So Lotus Center for All Faiths has made available the interfaith ritual music and prayers online at lotus.org, LOTUS. And you're welcome to use these music and prayers to create your own interfaith service or prayer circle. So at lotus.org, you just click on resources and go to Interfaith Aids, where you'll find the ritual music and prayers from 10 different faiths. And the themes of the prayers include peace, joy, love, light, gratitude, healing, earth, and unity. So we'd like to see more interfaith services and prayer circles happening around the world because it really brings people together. And do make use of what we have on lotus.org. It's for everyone to use. So now we're going to go back to New York to Reverend Shankar to introduce our yoga and faith panelists and the topics that they're talking on. Reverend Shankar.
Thank you, Swami Jyotirmayananda. Thank you for a beautiful video. It leaves us wanting more, right? So you can get that at lotus.org. We're going to now have a panel discussion. We have 8 wonderful panelists, and they're all going to focus on answering a specific question, which is, how does integral yoga help you unveil your inner peace and to understand your own faith more fully? That's really at the heart of integral yoga. People who practice integral yoga are not only yogis, but then they go more deeply and report they understand more about their own faith by understanding yoga. So we're going to hear about this from our panelists, and I'm going to start off by introducing each panelist before they speak so that you get to see how great these people really are. So the first person who's going to speak is Guru Dilipji. Guru Dilipji is the global chairman of the World Yoga Community, an amazing organization. It's an accredited NGO with the United Nations and serves communities in different capacities since 1999. And I will just say that Guru Dilipji is one of the world leaders in promoting yoga to the world. So now, Guru Dilipji, the floor is yours.
Om Loga Samasta Sugino Bhavantu Loga Samasta Sugino Bhavantu Loga Samasta Sugino Bhavantu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. It's my great pleasure and honor to join and celebrate this annual Interfaith Awareness Week. As an interfaith minister and a yogi, I'm so thrilled to join and celebrate with you all. So here we have so many speakers, and they all are going to focus on different paths, but everything end up in the spiritual path. I believe we all are divine beings on this earth to celebrate our existence. We all are chosen on this earth to care about every single being, including plants and animals. The teachings of Swami Sachidananda shows paths are many, God is one. I love him because of that one dialogue. You see, the Indian traditions or Hindu traditions, I don't say Hinduism is a religion, it's a way of life. All came from the indigenous traditions. Because of Adi Shankaracharya, we have Hinduism as it is now. Otherwise, we won't have. You see, from north to south of India, they have different traditions. But even though they had different teachings, the devotion is always there, devotion with the faith. I remember Swami Bua, some of you already met, who blow this shell everywhere. He used to tell us, begin the day with love, spend the day with love, fill the day with love, and end the way with the love. That's the way to God. So in the nutshell, you can see in Hinduism, even though we had different types of yogas in Bhagavad Gita and Vedas, they end up in love. Look at the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna. There's a faith is there, love is there. Still they have doubts about the master. Look at the Hanuman. Hanuman is always dedicated 100% to his master, Lord Rama. It shows there's a love relationship, attachment is there. A lot of time people say, we don't need an attachment. We don't have attachment. How you understand the detachment? So we had to go through all the worldly pleasures and experience and understand this is nothing, this is Maya. You go to Nirvana Shatakam written by Adi Shankaracharya. It says, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the body. I am beyond all of this. I don't need any rituals. I don't relate it with anybody. I am the universe because we all created by 5 elements. The universe is created with the 5 elements. Universe is not going to exist without us or these 5 elements. We are the universe. So that's a nutshell of the philosophy. But if you want to go to the level, without bhakti, we cannot go. Swami Shivananda always insists, all the teachers, we had to practice every yoga with a limited time in every day. Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Hatha Yoga, everything has to practice it. So this is just valuable for yoga, but without bhakti, we cannot reach the state of divinity. The bhakti is end up in the liberative mode, I'll say. That's the way we had to bring it. The ultimate is samadhi. So we need devotion. For devotion, you need experience. You go through different life experiences. You see very hardship in our life. Still, we have a faith in the universal God. That's the real attachment, the devotion. When you feel about your mother itself, you never forget your mother until your last breath. From the first breath to the last breath is our life. Within that lifespan, you feel the attachment of the mother, that mother from the divine mother itself. So I'm so happy. Within 5 minutes, we end up somewhere. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Guru Dilipji. That's the only time I said Om that I never wanted to say it. I wanted to hear more from you. So thank you. What a beautiful, beautiful words and insight. Thank you, brother. So our next panelist is Leila Hagazi. Leila, everyone is special here. Leila is special too. She's an integral yoga teacher. She's a music teacher. She's a professional musician. She's half of the band of Hagazi, which is her last name. She and her sister make the most beautiful music, and you can find that on HagaziBand.com. She's the daughter of an Italian Catholic mom and an Egyptian Muslim dad, and she was raised with an understanding of how people of different faiths can come together. So, Leila, would you grace us with your wisdom?
Thank you, Reverend Shankar. So, hi, everyone. My name is Leila. I'm so glad to be here, to be a part of this event. Yes, I am a child of an interfaith marriage. I'm currently in an interfaith marriage, and I was raised Muslim. I had been to church with my Catholic grandmother growing up. I grew up watching her pray and listening to and watching my father pray at home. And if you've ever witnessed an Islamic prayer, there's a couple things you'll notice about it. So the first is that it's very physical. You'll notice that there are different positions for the body, standing, kneeling, bowing, and that these very positions actually resemble yoga poses. In fact, they are yoga poses. So if you've ever seen child's pose, and if you've ever seen a Muslim bow down in prayer, they're essentially the same pose, maybe a different variation for the arms, but they are the same. And in this way, I think yoga and integral yoga always made sense to me. So the branch that I've been asked to talk about today, the branch of integral yoga, is Hatha yoga, which makes sense when you consider the Muslim prayer and just how physical it is, but also how vibrational it is. So when Muslims pray, when we pray, we are called to focus on the vibration of the Arabic words that we are reciting. And we do that just as we would chant Sanskrit, very musically, very melodically. And chanting, we don't really call it chanting, but similarly, chanting Sanskrit and reciting Arabic, the Arabic words of the Quran, very similar. So we're being called upon to focus on the vibrations of the words that we're saying, that where the tone of the notes that our voices are producing, and really focus on those words, almost like one would a mantra. So when your mind wanders in prayer, what are you asked to do? To bring it back again and again, knowing you may have to come back a million more times. And that's the Muslim prayer. It's a moving meditation, just like a hatha yoga practice, which is really how the West tends to see yoga, is the hatha yoga, the physical yoga postures. But yeah, I think in this way, yoga made sense to me as a way to understand and connect to the divine. Because when you understand that all of us are really kind of drawn to the parts of our faith and the parts of our spiritual practices that connect to us, and that they're informed by our spiritual backgrounds, it all really comes together. So it's worth noting also that only about 20% of the Muslim world is Arab, which I don't think a lot of people realize. And most Muslims then are actually chanting, really, we don't use the word chanting, but for our purposes now, they're speaking, they're praying in classical Arabic, even though they don't speak it, just as most yogis are chanting in Sanskrit. And we don't speak Sanskrit in 2022, but it's really the vibration of the words, and it's a way to connect to our sense of sound, to what it feels like to have a body and to move through the world in this body, these bodies, these temporary shells for our souls. And I could go on for 10 more hours about this subject. I'm not sure exactly how I'm doing on time, because I meant to set my stopwatch, and then of course I forgot to do that. But
yeah, there's about 1 minute left, Layla.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So the last thing I'll just say is just in reference to the month of Ramadan, the Muslim holy month, which includes, of course, prayer, fasting, which is also a part of yoga, charity, and selfless service. So there are many branches of integral yoga that are just naturally part of the Islamic faith. And all of these different branches of yoga are really a part of every faith. So I'm just so glad to be here. I am by no means a representative of Islam, just a practitioner. But I appreciate this time to share my perspective, and thank you so much.
Layla, thank you. Well, I think you're the best representative. Your faith, your love of Allah and God, and your ability to see the connections makes you a wonderful representative. So thank you, Layla, so much for your sharing. By the way, at the end of the panelist discussion, we'll reserve time for you to ask any questions of any of the panelists who are still with us at that time. So feel free to write down the questions that you might have. So our next panelist is Vera Oye Yaana. Vera's biography is so impressive, right? She's affectionately known as Auntie Oye, and she's a Liberian-born acclaimed master storyteller who transports her audience to West Africa through imaginative interactive storytelling. So Vera is going to speak about the African faiths. Right? She's the founder and executive director of Oye Palavahat, a 25-year-old established cultural arts organization that integrates storytelling and performances with culinary arts, right, to focus on the physical and emotional well-being of people. She's a 4-time DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities Fellowship Program recipient, and she's so dear to our hearts. So Vera, may you please take the floor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vera Oyeya Ana, he says, and you can call me Auntie Oye. So before I begin, in the African tradition, we'll pour libation. And it's just symbolically pouring some water into the ground or into a container And this is giving thanks to your creator and your ancestors. So what you're doing is thanking them for all of the blessings. So I'll say, Abliwe Batio, and you say Batio. Abliwe Batio, Abliwe Batio, and I drink this water. And I gave my ancestors and creators their share. And my faith have kept me, especially during these last 2 with this pandemic. And to support and deepen my spiritual path to attain moksha through karma yoga, I stay in a meditative state, experiencing and expressing forgiveness, gratitude, and blessings for being, for my ancestors, for the children and parents of the world, for all of humanity and the continent. What I've been experiencing, especially with children, I work with children, and many of them are unable to express themselves. So what I've been working with them is being mindful. Instead of asking them, because of, like I say, most of them don't have the words. So I've been using food. I've been using grapes. And what I'll do, I'll take a plate of grapes and give each child a grape and ask them not to touch, but just to observe. Just getting them to be mindful of what's before them. And the reason I continue this is because they've told me they like that. Trying to get them to be attentive. By working with the children, I am working with myself because I'm going within. And I'm working with the teachers and the other artists around me. Every conscious moment, I am in a meditative state. Because getting away from it is going to bring unsteadiness to me. What I've learned the past 2 years is to be so mindful of my environment, whether I'm walking or talking, because it is so fragile. Everything is so fragile. So many people we've lost. I've seen the person on the street person that I've seen every day, and the following day, the person's no longer existent. And when I inquire, I'm told they expired the night before. Because of this, I have to stay within. I have to be careful and don't lose sight of my purpose. And I know my purpose is to bring healing to myself and everyone that I come in contact with. So I'm grateful for integral yoga helping me to understand. Before I came to that practice, I was always a meditator. And so what this has done, it has just made me more aware. And I cannot tell you the greatest joy I have just watching this morning and just being here with you all. I want to thank every one of you for giving me this opportunity to express my gratitude and blessings for this time. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Vera. You know she's a master storyteller when I didn't even have to say Om, and she's coming in right at the second of the allotted time. So Vera, thank you so much for a beautiful, beautiful sharing. And I know we'll have questions for you. I do. So I know we'll have questions for you afterwards. Okay. So the next speaker is Jivakan Abate, affectionately known as Jiva. Those of us who are honored enough to call him our friend. So let me tell you a little bit about Jiva. So he's a certified American Indian tribal member of the Salish and Kootenai tribes of the Flathead Nations from Montana. Jiva was the CEO and founder of Native Technologies, Inc., a computer systems and telecommunications business. And he's held many, many senior positions in the Integral Yoga organization. We're so honored to have him as in our group. And Jiva, the floor is yours.
Oh, so happy to be here to share my experience and tell a few stories of how yoga has deepened my understanding of nature and my traditional native path. My mother was raised on the reservation in Montana and had a very bad experience. So she did not even tell me of my lineage. I had to discover that. And then I was able to inform her of the beauty of her own lineage and the fact that I was able to go back to Montana and interact with my tribe, do a sacred sweat lodge in the mountains of Montana where my great-grandfather had also performed the sacred sweat lodge. I joined them in a sacred dance at the Arlie Powwow in Montana. And I was able to, in that dance with my ancestors, which was a beautiful experience. The feeling that the people around us were also joined with all our ancestors. And a sacred dance where we're chanting, singing, and very gracefully dancing together. So for me, integral yoga, studying with my master, Swami Satchidananda, led me deep so that I could then understand the practices of the native spiritual path. So I look at this as how to soar with eagles. So Swami Satchidananda told a story. He said, it's good to soar with eagles, but you have to have the attitude of focusing on the highest transcendence, the high principles, the ethical and highest spiritual principles. And he said, otherwise, you're looking down, looking for mice to eat instead of soaring above the negative things of the world. So to me, that was a native teaching and it resonated with me. So to soar with eagles, we have to purify, practice, realize, and maintain that high consciousness and awareness. So my parents, mother being Native American, my dad was Sicilian Italian, and they were dancing all the time. So I grew up in this spirit of prayer, going to church, and then my parents going out and dancing as much as they could and playing music and being inspired. So this was my path. But I viewed that the spiritual practices of yoga and our native practices shared mentorship, the guidance of a master, discipline, regulation of energy, living a life of sacrifice, fasting, and diet, purification, kriyas, cleansing, sweat lodge, pilgrimages to sacred sites, vision quest, practices of chanting, singing, sacred calls and songs, prayer, dance, drumming, meditation, ceremonies, coming of age, initiation, vision quest, sacred dance, all those sacred uses of sage, Daily I use a sage prayer and pray for all and pray for specific people. Sage is used commonly. But underlying that is a spiritual perspective, and the one that focuses on following the teachings and seeing.
Okay, instead of making you wait, let's thank Jiva in our hearts for a beautiful, beautiful talk. And let's hear from our next speaker. Our next speaker is Reverend Kumari Desachi. So let me tell you some things about Kumari. So Kumari is a devotee of Sri Gurudev, and she has been one since 1981. She's an integral yoga minister since 1995 and a former college English professor. Reverend Kumari has lived at Satchidananda Ashram in Yogaville since 1986, serving in many capacities, including teaching Hatha Yoga, teaching various branches of yoga. She's been a wonderful editor of various publications and the Integral Yoga magazine, a manager of residential programs, and a teacher at the Yogaville School and more. Her list goes on and on of wonderful attributes. So Reverend Kumari is representing Judaism. Can you please share some wisdom with us?
Thank you. Thank you. I feel so blessed to have discovered, or maybe it discovered me, integral yoga and my beloved Guru, Sri Gurudev, through whom I can join this interfaith movement and meet so many like-minded people like you. And through his guidance and the wisdom and the unconditional love that he shared, and through the Sangha, by doing all the integral yoga practices from the various branches of that holistic system for many years and doing them regularly, I've discovered that identification and attachment to the body and the mind and everything else that's temporary in this world, whether animate or inanimate, doesn't bring the kind of lasting peace that I and everybody else is looking for and longing for. So as I continue to practice integral yoga and to reap its benefits, I feel that the veil of ignorance is being lifted, that the light of truth is becoming brighter, and that my perception is becoming clearer. And I'm becoming more and more aware that eternal peace is our birthright, that it exists within all of us, and that our true nature is absolute truth, knowledge, bliss, Satchitananda. And to answer the second part of the question that Reverend Shankar posed to us about the different branches of yoga, I'll speak a little bit about Jnana Yoga. I've been practicing Jnana Yoga, the yoga of wisdom, the intellectual branch of yoga, for a long time, and I've come to understand that its fundamental aspect, which is self-inquiry or self-analysis, is also an essential characteristic of Judaism, the religion that I grew up in, although I was never exposed to the intellectual side of Judaism, or even the mystical side of Judaism, which I discovered also through yoga. But Jnana yogis meditate on the question, who am I? And then they analyze the answers that pop into their minds by employing a Sanskrit phrase or a mantra, which is neti, neti in Sanskrit, and it means neither this nor that. This is a form of analytical meditation that helps them understand the temporary nature of worldly phenomena and the permanent, transcendent, limitless nature an absolute reality of Brahman or universal consciousness, we could say, or God. In Judaism, intellectually inclined Jewish seekers also draw on an abstract analytical process of questioning and interpretation. They focus on the mystery of the name of God. God is limitless, and God, I might say God transcends name and form. And in the Hebrew Bible, when Moses asks God how he can introduce God to the Israelites, because Jews don't name God, God tells him to say that I am. Some people say I am that, or I am what I am, but I am sent me. That's what Moses should tell the people. In my mind, the answer to Moses' question, basically asking God, like we do in Jnana Yoga, who are you? And God's answer, I am, parallel that Jnana Yoga question. And the Upanishad's answer to who am I? Tattvam asi, meaning thou art that. Another abstract phrase that, when meditated upon, can lead the spiritual seeker to the knowledge that there's a relationship, or maybe it's even more accurate to say that there's union, yoga, there's a unity between the individual and God. So thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving me this opportunity to hear you and to meet you and see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend Kumari. How beautiful. Again, we can go on forever on, your intimate knowledge of Judaism and of yoga, and how they're not very different, right? Not very different. So thank you so much for your wonderful wisdom. Next, we're going to hear from Swami Priyananda. Swami Priyananda, her roots go back into her Christian upbringing, right? And she wrote, as I now approach my 17th year as an integral yoga sannyasi. By the way, a sannyasi, also a swami, is really the equivalent of a monk, right? Who takes vows of renunciation and practices poverty, celibacy, and obedience. And so she's one of our great swamis, as are a number on this call. And she said, I find the sympathical nature of the teachings of Swami Satchidananda and of Lord Jesus Christ strengthen my faith in God's loving presence and guidance. And Swami Satchidananda would often quote Christ in his talks, right, which opened all of our hearts to understanding the power of Christianity. So please, Swami Priyananda, take the floor.
Ariom. Thank you, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji and Reverend Shankar, for this opportunity to participate in the interfaith sharing with my distinguished brothers and sisters. I asked Swami Sharadananda recently, how would you define, how do Christianity and Bhakti Yoga, how do those two go together? And she just looked at me and said, Christianity is Bhakti Yoga. So I will attempt to illustrate this through my experience of both. Having been born into a Christian family, I, as a young child, experienced Lord Jesus as a safe harbor of love, of compassion, and of forgiveness. In our family, we practiced the love of Lord Jesus through music. We sang in the church choir, pageantry. We acted in the Christmas Eve plays of the life and birth of baby Jesus. In rituals, there was baptism, Holy Communion, and in study, we attended Sunday school, catechism class, church. We went to summer camps, and all of the opportunities that we had in this small town, we took advantage of as young people to learn more of the Christian teachings. Growing up in this town felt safe, it was fun, and it was boring sometimes. I used to sit on my front porch and look up into the mountains and think, someday I'll get to New York City. Well, first came college, and it was at the State University where secular knowledge and my spiritual faith seemed to collide. So when I arrived in New York City, I arrived with lots of questions. And experiencing that city was exciting and fun and chaotic, and created fear. All kinds of different experiences rose up in me. And every time the mind would rise high, I would feel complete bliss and joy. But it wasn't long before it would crash with all the lows of life. So I was succeeding in my career, but I had little peace and my health was waning. However, at my first Integral Yoga Hatha class, I experienced a profound sense of peace. It was brought about by my body becoming very quiet and my mind becoming so inwardly drawn that I seemed to go beyond space and time. And I stayed there until toward the end of the class, I heard the voice of the yoga teacher utter two words which I had never heard before, but were somehow so familiar to me. Upon coming back into my very relaxed body, I noticed the tears were flowing out of my eyes because something in my heart realized I was on my way home. So how has integral yoga unveiled the peace in me? It brought health to this body by practicing the breathing techniques, the yoga asanas, by learning to eat a wholesome, natural vegetarian diet, and by spending more time outside in nature. It brought peace to my mind, again, through the practice of pranayama or the breathing techniques, through meditation, through the study of Raja Yoga and its ethical principles of yama and niyama, similar to the 10 commandments of my Christian upbringing, through mantra initiation, and through realizing that I could have that fullest experience through the love, devotion, and renunciation in a life of love. So yes, all the practices were and are very beneficial. But for me, nothing has superseded the moment of meeting my spiritual master. In Sri Swami Satchidananda, all of the paths have converged. Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Japa Yoga. Everything was manifested fully in him. Lord Jesus' disciples called their guru Rabboni. The disciples of Sri Swami Satchidananda call him Gurudev. The first time I saw Sri Swami Satchidananda, I saw the light of Christ. The presence of Sri Gurudev continues in my life today. And in this presence, all fear is removed, and I have found the source of my faith. Thank you.
Swami Priyananda, thank you for a totally engaging and transformational talk. Thank you so much. We're now going to hear from Swami Dayananda. Swami Dayananda is representing the Shinto faith. You had a chance to see her in the video, right? Mm-hmm. She was one of those practitioners. So Swami Dayananda serves as a member of the Yogaville Board of Trustees. She's been a monastic and student of Swami Satchidananda since 1983, and she teaches Hatha Yoga, meditation, and teaches other people to train integral yoga. She's a member of the Yogaville Environmental Solutions Organization, YES, Y-E-S, which helps protect the Yogaville environment and local community, and has been instrumental in Yogaville's transition to renewable energy and sustainability. Her yogic teachings and practices and her faith are the anchors from which she draws the energy and dedication for climate justice. So, Swami Dayananda, would you share us with your wisdom and answers to those questions?
Thank you, Shankarji, and thank you to all the representatives and those who have joined us. And it was during the deep relaxation session, New York IYI had a class, that I experienced that indescribable peace. And through that peace, I realized there is hope still to my life. I could keep going, even though I couldn't sustain that peace in my daily life. When I met Sri Swami Satchidananda, who was the founder of Indigo Yoga, and since I was at Indigo Yoga Institute, I had an opportunity to come into his presence. And in a way, Indigo Yoga teachings, as it is, as Sri Gurudev always said, I am not the guru, the teachings is the guru. And I've always had a deep, at the beginning, attachment to his physical presence, because in his very divine presence, something I've never experienced in any other circumstance with anybody else, something that was so healing completely. And this vibration, I believe, that is what a saint, an enlightened being, due to their own awareness, recognition, realization, they are able to be in that peace always. And so when I met him, I realized that is possible to live without being affected by daily turmoils of life. And that is what made me come to the ashram, eventually became pre-sannyas and a sannyas. And I think in Indigo Yoga teachings, of course, for the health, for the peace, what I started with was karma yoga. Just I needed to be doing something to keep my mind more at peace. And that was certainly a blessing to be at the ashram. There was always services to do. And let me share a little bit how I, as someone who lived in Japan for 15 years, how did I come to understand it better through the teachings of Indigo Yoga and the grace of Sri Gurudev? And by the way, I'm not able to speak about it. In a way, the opportunity, the blessing and grace of having a guru is something beyond my own understanding. I feel like I must have lived 10,000 millions of lives to come to be able to be guided by him. And so, as you noticed in the interfaith service, the harae tamae, kiyome tamae, that old Shinto priest says at the beginning. Harae tamae means please cleanse me. Kiyome tamae, purify me. And that is really the basic teachings of yoga as well. And in Indigo Yoga, we purify through physically through hatha, mentally through meditation, and in our life through karma yoga, action, serving all things for others. And so there's that real connection between yoga and Shinto in purity, having a purity of heart, which I didn't really understand as a 15-year-old in Japan. Shankar, how much time do I have?
You can take a couple of more minutes.
Okay. So in fact, I didn't really have connection at all with Shinto faith, or even though I grew up, around it. What Indigo Yoga and Gurudev did for me, first of all, coming here to this country as a 15-year-old, being very small compared to other American girls, and not being able to speak Japanese. And also TV those days made fun of racial aspects. So I suffered from inferiority complex as a Japanese. And so to make it short, I think my time is up. Shri Guru, I needed a living guru besides the teachings. And his unconditional love and acceptance of me allow me to let go of my awareness only as a Japanese. So as I took sannyas, he told me, as he cut my last little hair, no more Japanese. And I experienced a universal oneness with all people at this moment. So in a way, Indigo Yoga and Gurudev has truly made me understand through which to appreciate my faith, Shinto, and to go beyond it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Dayananda. She really is one of the leaders in the ecology, climate change, thoughtful mindfulness about pipelines and where they are and what they do. She's spiritual activism, a living example of that, right? Because it's always peaceful, without anger, without hatred, but with bringing God into a situation. So thank you so much, Swami Dayananda. Our last speaker is Lama Kanchag Pema, originally known as Ramanan. He's now Lama Kanchag Pema. He met Swami Satchidananda, who you're hearing a lot about, in 1966, one of the originals. He directed the Berkeley Integral Yoga Institute, and he lived at Yogaville West. And he's currently an ordained Buddhist monk. So, of course, he's representing Buddhism. So, Lama Kanchag Pema, please take the floor.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm going to pick up a little bit where Swami Dayananda left off. My topic is Raja Yoga. And in Buddhism, Raja Yoga to me is mostly Patanjali, which is a Hindu yoga. But Raja Yoga is the last rung. And in Buddhism, in the Paramitas, the last rung is wisdom. Sometimes it is known as Mahamudra, Dzogchen, or Rigpa. You may have heard all that. I try to stay away from the words enlightenment. I hope I don't offend any Buddhists because enlightenment is a very ethereal and hard to pin down. One of the words that describes enlightenment in Tibetan is chungye. Chungye basically means purify. Keep purifying. Chung is to purify. Ye is to keep going, keep purifying, keep whatever awakened mind, keep it going. So the story I want to talk about in Mahamudra or meditation, hopefully I could do this in 5 minutes. And if you ever have questions about Buddhism or anything I say, you could always reach me, and I'm happy to elaborate or answer any questions. I work in a maximum security prison every Tuesday, and I teach Buddhism and meditation. And one of the prisoners always says to me, "Good morning." Even if it's at night, he'll say, "Good morning." I say, "Why do you say good morning all the time?" He says, "Because that's the time you wake up." You always wake up in the morning. So when we want to be awakened, I always say good morning, no matter what time it is. So I think meditation is the glue for all of it. It's wonderful to be the last speaker and to talk about meditation, because when I tell the fellows in the prison, I don't care about enlightenment, I care about transformation. That's my main goal. Most of them are very, very angry. If you look at them the wrong way, or someone says something with the wrong inflection, they're very ready to already start a fight or throw a tray or bump somebody. It doesn't take much. And so my feeling is that if I can transform that anger, that I've accomplished my goal. And if you can learn how to meditate in a prison, if you can learn how to do sadhana in a prison where 2,000 men are, it's very loud. I tell my fellow prison yogis, you have to wake up at 3:30 every morning. Your only time to do sadhana is from 3:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock. Because after 8 in the morning, it's so loud, you can't really do any sadhana. So they wake up, they do prostrations in the morning, and they do mantra in the morning, and they do deity yoga in the morning. And that meditation that they do on breathing and just relaxing into a state of complete emptiness. I said to them, when we get together every Tuesday in the room, that you should imagine you're in a pure land, that this room we have is quiet, it's clean, we're together as a Sangha, that we are Buddha. We have Buddha nature within us. And that this pure land that's a Sangha that you sit with, once we walk out the door, we have to carry this into the world. Meditation isn't just on the cushion. Meditation starts on the cushion. But meditation really is when we're off the cushion, when we encounter each other. So when someone bumps into you in the lunchroom, some skinhead or a Mexican gang member, or bumps into you and pushes you or pulls your chair out or says something about your brother, as opposed to immediately punch them, if you can remember the sadhana and just take a breath. As a matter of fact, in Buddhism, we wish our enemies and those that hate us and obstruct us, we put them first in our compassion. I said, so it goes against prison mentality where you want to get revenge on somebody. I said, because revenge keeps going round and round. It never ends. But if that person who caused you harm, you can wish them enlightenment. You can wish them happiness. You could take away their suffering by doing Tonglen practice. Then you've accomplished something really great. So that's my little talk on meditation. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. You can see a lot of people are appreciating these comments, right? Embodying interfaith, taking the peace that you find within during spiritual practice and carrying it. And the yogis who wake up in the prison are probably pretty special people, because what a tough environment, right? But a great chance to practice yoga, Buddhism, spiritual paths together. So thank you so much for your inspired words. Now, everybody, I just want to let you know that we're going to do Q&A now. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, we're going to open the floor. We want you to remember that we're recording, right? So just be aware of that. And Dilipji, thank you so much, right? He has other obligations. He stayed as long as he could, but thank you for being here. So I'm going to open it up to the floor. So we have our first question from Ruth. Ruth, why don't you share your question? Tell us who's your question for, and then you can ask the question.
This is just a general comment to all of you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and to hear you. And I have some very beloved faces in the little squares, including Swami Dayananda. And I was privileged, and Vera, who I met in my hometown in Culver City when she was doing her amazing storytelling and sharing food in Culver City, California. And I went every month to hear about a different African country and dance and enjoy the food. So this is like my class reunion. Plus, I was invited to be part of Interfaith Week at Yogaville. I think it was some 10 years ago. It was really such a memorable experience to meet people from all the different faiths together there. But also I was especially struck by, during the service we had, the Interfaith service, where we came and lit candles, there were 9 of us, is that Swami Satchidananda had provided a candle for religions as yet unknown. Mm-hmm. And that idea alone, right, was so profound, because we tend to think in terms of the finiteness of our religion and what has happened to us spiritually, and then to think of the possibility that there are yet religions we haven't even heard about that are part of the religious family. So I just want to salute all of you at Yogaville and say what a pleasure it is to see you, and thank you for the privilege of inviting me to be in your home.
Thank you, Ruth, for your sweet words. Thank you. Okay, I can't see the full screen, but I'm sure that Nataraj can.
Nobody with their hands raised thus far, Shankar.
Okay, so now's the time. I have.
Oh, wait, Jean O'Sullivan would like to share something.
So welcome, Jean. Hello.
Hello. Thank you. I have a question for the Lama. I'm not sure how to address you, Lama Ji. A good friend of my uncle was a retired Maryknoll priest. He also worked in a high security prison with the prisoners. So that practice, what you said, if somebody shoves them or someone is harming them, it happens to all of us. Are you teaching them to, in that moment, wish them some enlightenment or peace, or like you're practicing so you have a little reserve of that when that happens?
Right.
Because that happens to everybody, right? Like,
right.
Say a little more of that.
Sure. Well, I think it's a wonderful thing. Sometimes the English language actually is a wonderful language. So the word is practice. And the only time I hate the word practice is when I go to the doctor and I have to find out he has a practice. I'd like my doctor not to be practicing anymore. He should know by now. But other than that, in the spiritual realm, we're practicing to unlearn bad habits. And so you're going to fall. That's where compassion comes in. You have to always have more compassion for yourself when you fall and can't do it. But the more we practice, and spirituality is actually quite simple. The more we're in the light, the less we're in the dark. And so if we keep making a habit over and over of being compassionate, wishing compassion. Mahayana means great vehicle. It means having. I'm not going to be enlightened until every sentient being is enlightened. I'm going to do what I can altruistically for all sentient beings, even more than sentient beings, the planet, trees, what have you. So we have to keep training to put ourselves last and others first. And so, sometimes you're going to fall, especially prisoners, when they're shoved or someone gives them a gang sign or they get beat up by others because they feel they're threatened. But the more they come back in compassion, and for all of us, it takes a lot of training. It does take a lot of, and that's the other part of meditation, is the more you're meditating, the more space you have. Meditation buys you space. You don't react right away. And so it slows things down, and you're able to bring up compassion because you're not caught in the hook of reacting. So that's all I'll say. And I'm happy to talk more. You could contact me and we could talk at length. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a great question.
I just wanted to add on to Kanchag Pema's point about these teachings and how we as a Sangha help each other. I've known Kanchag Pema since the 70s in Berkeley. We practiced together for years. We communicate to each other. He passed on something called the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva to me. And it was steep practice. It's kind of like an advanced course in humbling yourself. And one of the things I've been working with is just the 15th sutra of that practice, which is when you are offended by someone who would scold you in front of all your friends, you should hold that person as your guru in meditation. So I had to try this. And then I realized what it's really showing you is where you are clinging on to yourself, to how I can't be offended. This is my ego. I'm in my ego. But when you're meditating on that, you can accept it all as coming for your work, coming for your practice. So I would sit with this. If someone had said something that offended me, I would sit with it. But by meditating on it, I worked through it and I realized that it's showing me where I was wanting to be treated a certain way. And if I would just let go of that, I was free. So I want to thank Kanchag Pema for demonstrating how we as a Sangha can help each other. So if it doesn't work through our own practice, one of our brothers or sisters, even from another path, can help us. And I really think that is something we can do more for each other. And I want to thank and be grateful for that teaching.
Thank you so much, Jiva. Okay, I have a question, and I hope I'm not catching her too much off guard. So this is for Layla about Islamic faith. Layla, one of the things that I'm struck whenever I read about the Islamic faith is that underlying everything as a Muslim is the love for God. So, and that really connects with Bhakti Yoga. So, am I right? And can you speak to that, Layla?
You are right. So Islam, it is a way of life. And I'm reminded of this all the time, actually, when I read the Yoga Sutras. When Patanjali says that we must practice, without break, right? In all earnestness. And the way that I was taught Islam is, it's not like, okay, you do your 5 prayers, and then whatever you do for the rest of the day, or your 3 prayers if you're Shia. I don't think a lot of people know that Sunni and Shia have a difference in the amount of prayers per day. But it's not just, let me do my 5 prayers, and then for the rest of the day, there's no God. It's really, how are you embodying God and honoring God every moment of your life through action, through serving others. And also, what does it even mean to love God, right? So the idea, and I think people in different faith traditions have different views on this, but the idea of a loving presence that's always there with you, kind of guiding you throughout your day. And different people from different faiths have different ways of expressing this, not just through God, but through saints and, a guru, for example. But I think in Islam, it is this idea of a presence that's there. And I think when you bring yoga into it, understanding that presence is within really brings it all together. That really, and that, I actually meant to say that before. That I think really was what completed the picture for me, was just bringing the yoga and understanding, this idea of God that I was taught as this presence that's there, that I talk to regularly, right? 5 times a day. We talk, we have a lot of conversations that, these conversations are also internal when you look at it from a yogic perspective of God being within. Right. And celebrating yourself as an expression of God, right? So how do you care for yourself? How do you care for the world, knowing that everyone has God in them, right? Is a manifestation of God. When you do that, there's really no separation between you and others at all, right? It's basically, you have to do good, not because you're going to go to hell if you don't, but because, when you serve others, when you serve yourself, when you serve God, you're serving everything in the whole universe. So that's my view on it anyway.
Okay. Thank you so much, Layla. I have one more question. I don't see anyone else's hand raised. So this is both for Vera and for Jiva. One of the things that I appreciate so much about what you both made reference to is that your traditions, connections to the earth. I don't think never at any time in the history of the human race have we been so aware of the need to take care of our planet. And your traditions, since the beginning of time, also focus on that. So both Vera and Jiva, can you say just a word or two about your traditions and how they can help us connect more to the earth and our relationship to the earth?
Go ahead, Vera.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
So the question, Vera, is how does your tradition help us connect more closely with our relationship to the earth, to nature?
Well, as you know, most of Africa, especially West Africa, Liberia, where I grew up, it's agriculture based. I learned growing up that even if you wanted to take a leaf from the tree, you needed to ask permission. The tree was put there and the leaves were put for your enjoyment, but you cannot go and pluck something without permission and giving thanks. And so connection to the land is also connection to your heart. And the more I became aware, the more hungry I became to learn more about my relationship to all things. And when you far away from home, especially with the whole earth being in turmoil, you have a commitment and you have an obligation. We are all stewards of the land. And so the more awareness you have, then the more responsibility you have. And that is instilled early. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to always be able to express my deep appreciation for all we have been given. Mm. So one of the things I'm doing now also about plastic. When you visit Africa or visit many places, if you see the amount of plastic that goes into the earth, is really appalling. So what I'm doing, instead of going to the supermarket and bringing more plastic with me, I'm carrying my own cloth bag. Because this is ridiculous. I don't know how we are going to maintain what we have if we don't pay attention. So I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vera. Yes, please, Jiva. We're going to move on to some
Sure.
discussions, but please
Sure.
give us some brief thoughts on
Sure.
this.
Well, along with Swami Dayananda, I was inspired to join with her and create Yes. And then we found that peaceful activism that comes with understanding the planet is necessary for us to practice and live upon it. And we found ourselves facing a pipeline that would bring fossil fuels and all the problems. And we became familiar with the science and the health of these issues. So we have marched.
So I think that Jiva is, again, dealing with some technical challenges, but I know that he was going to say that they have marched peacefully to bring awareness to the potential harm that pipeline comes, and it's a key part of spiritual practices being aware of your environment. I'm going to now hand it over to Swami Jyotirmayananda in Yogaville, who's going to lead us in an open discussion. And then end with some closing chants. So, Swami Jyotirmayananda.
Okay, so hello, everybody. This has been a wonderful presentation by everyone. And we do have some questions. One question, basically, for those of you who are participating, joining us. And the question is, what role does stilling the mind play in your personal spiritual practice? So what helps you? Is it meditation, prayer, mantra, nature, art, music? What is it for you? Maybe one thing, there might be several things, and it could be service itself. But what is one thing that helps to still the mind in your practice? So I'd like to see what you have to say on this. And I think we could maybe start with my dear friend, Brahmi Romero. Brahmi, if you could start and answer this question, that'd be helpful. In just a minute or so would be fine.
Better sleep for me, more ease, and in doing so, the ability to be more helpful and useful in my community. When there's not a lot of static coming in, the beautiful divine music is clearer. And the yoga practices have helped me achieve that, particularly the pranayama practice and the bhakti practices for me, the devotional practices.
Thank you, Brahmi. And I might add, Brahmi has this wonderful dog, Finn, that I think also helps to make her heart peaceful. Isn't that true, Brahmi?
Very true, very true.
Great.
Hi, I'd love to answer that question. I grew up in New York City, and stilling my mind always meant blocking out the sounds and the sights of everything around me. So I find that to still my mind, the Japa Yoga branch is extremely effective because it feels like that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm, sort of withdrawing from everything around me and concentrating on not the silence and the stillness that almost feels like it doesn't exist in a city like this, but something that's in motion and yet centralized in me. And when I do that, I find it very easy to find other people doing it. Like once I started realizing that Japa Yoga was what it is, I recognized it when I went to church, praying a rosary, when my Muslim friends would bow down and, when it was time to do their prayers. And every time I heard someone repeating something, whether it's a mantra, an affirmation, a chorus of a song, I would understand that they were coming to that place of stillness and almost automatically just came to that place as well, whether I was speaking out loud or just repeating a mantra in my mind.
Thank you, Diane. Japa Yoga, that's wonderful, particularly when you're in a place like New York City. Very helpful.
I think, Jiva, did you want to answer this question?
Yes, well, I'm still not frozen. I'm going to move quickly to this. I have found that this stillness place is important to realizing our oneness with the universe. And I really only achieved that in meditation. And then I was able to experience this deep peace. And a black elk, a holy man for the Lakota, refers to that peace, which allows you to see all things as part of the universe we share. The first piece, which is when we realize our relationship and oneness with the universe and all its power, and that at the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and that its center is really everywhere within each of us. So through this center, we are connected to all things. And now I feel the birds are my friends in my yard. I'm close to woodpeckers and wrens and jaybirds. There's a bear that comes through our neighborhood periodically. We avoid him, but it's there. And so we're really realizing this wonderful oneness through this peaceful place. So by going to the peaceful place, we then can have a vision that doesn't exist in the disturbed mind. And that's the way I see it. Thank you.
I'd say for me that it's trees. Just being near a tree, or even thinking about a tree, thinking about what leaves sound like, even on the ground, or thinking of like light coming through me like a tree. But it's how I calm myself. It's how I, use prayers with trees. I mean, they are our friends.
Thank you, Jean, for that reminder. In Virginia, we're surrounded by trees, so sometimes I think we take it for granted, our ocean of green. But I know when I've been in New York, we see a tree on the street, it's very special.
So I'm creative. I draw, I make music, and I've recently discovered the power of Nada yoga, like the union of sound, and I play gongs. I host gong baths at IYI in New York, and there's moments where my mind is completely still. My body is moving. There's activity, but my mind is completely still. And like Jiva was saying, like this kind of oneness with the universe, with all the vibrations that exist around us, and that we're just, that they're, that I'm as much a part of them as they're much part of me. And I'm just starting to appreciate those moments where those two elements have come together, where I can just become lost in the sound. And so those are the new discoveries beyond the asanas and the pranayama and all the other ways that I've learned to still the mind. For me, that's the most immediate.
Thank you, Dave Ottman. Dave, you spoke about music being a way to still the mind. And I just want to ask Ruth Sharon just to share a little bit with us about Interfaith Musical. It's such a wonderful project, and I'd like everybody here to know about it. So, Ruth, can you just share a little bit?
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to invite all of you at 6 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time and 9 o'clock your time, if you're still up. I'm going to be sharing a showcase of 8 songs from Interfaith the Musical. And although for many years I worked as a filmmaker and an author and journalist, this musical represents what I call a cosmic download. And I started hearing melodies and lyrics on my walks, and they all had to do with interfaith engagement. And although I'm not a professional musician and never considered this as something I would be doing, I came to understand that this was a way of our bringing interfaith mainstream to audiences in the theater who would come to be entertained, and yet at the same time would come away learning something about what does it mean to be an interfaith community, and who are these magnificent people from so many different religions, races, ethnicities, beliefs. So this music represents an opportunity for us to reflect ourselves publicly and to show what each of us has discovered both personally in our practice, and especially those of you from Yogaville, which you can actually see living interfaith in the community there in a way that we don't always experience it in our separate communities. But our time has come, and there's no better way to do it than through music and the arts. And so I invite you all to join us if you can today, to visit the website, interfaithandmusical.com. And there are 2 albums of 22 songs that are a tribute to the Creator for having made us in so many magnificent and diverse ways, just what God intended for us to love one another. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the music.
Thank you, Ruth. Interfaiththemusical.com. So I think now we're going to close up, and I think we have a closing comment by Reverend Shankar.
Okay, so thank you all so much for being with us, for sharing, for opening your minds and hearts, and for inspiring us, right? I also want to publicly thank the Interfaith team in Yogaville and in New York. Many of the people who are on those teams are on this broadcast now, and we want to publicly thank you for your great contributions. There are a couple of websites that are resources for you. So one is www.integralyoga.org. You will see a lot about Yogaville and the whole organization. And also for New York, we have a lot of great resources there too. So it's IYINY.org, Integral Yoga New York, but it's IYINY.org, right? Jyotirmayananda is going to give you some local resources, but these are some great places. And by the way, if you want to learn more about having resource or accesses to a minister, right? An integral yoga minister, there's the Integral Yoga Ministry. It's a place where you can get access for spiritual counseling and support and support in your spiritual growth. So I want to thank everyone who came and everyone who presented and everyone who'll build all of this. And I'm now going to pass it over to Swami Jyotirmayananda for some other resources and closing chants.
Okay. Thank you, Reverend Shankar. And then please put those resources in the chat for those that want to write them down. And I did mention to you about lotus.org that has our ritual music prayers and summaries of the faiths and other items that are open for everyone under lotus.org, resources, interfaith aids. We also have yogaville.org that features all our workshops, teacher trainings, and programs. Kumari, do you have something?
Yeah, before we end, I would just like to add to the resources that I published a book for integral yoga called A Vision of Peace several years ago, the interfaith teachings of Shri Swami Satchidananda. So that's one resource if anyone would like to read firsthand, actually, the teachings that Gurudev gave on the issue of interfaith harmony.
Kumari, is that available now on Amazon?
Yes.
Good. Very great. So, anyway, in closing.
Could I just add something? I'm sorry I missed the earlier presentation. Maybe this was said, but one of the things I discovered, this is Ruth Brody Sharon speaking, when I was at Yogaville, is about Guru Satchidananda's connection with Rabbi Gelberman. And Rabbi Gelberman was the one to actually create the first interfaith seminary in New York. But the rabbi and the Swami were doing interfaith work before it was called interfaith work. Their relationship and what they were doing together in the city and their concerns about the world and how they modeled in their relationship what is interfaith fellowship and brotherhood, sisterhood, humanhood was, I think, truly remarkable for those of us who've been members of the interfaith community for many decades and who are looking to see what were the earliest seeds that were planted. I think we absolutely have to consider their relationship as being a great inspiration for all of us.
Right. If I could just quickly say, Doris Carlson was a great philanthropist. She was married to Chester Carlson, who invented the Xerox machine. And Doris brought D.T. Suzuki to this country. I had a dear friend, Xavi Pespizo, who was friends with Doris, and I introduced Gurudev to Doris Carlson, who introduced Gurudev to Rabbi Gelberman and Tyson Shimano, and that got the whole ball rolling.
Really. So
thank you.
We stand on the shoulders of people who came before us.
Thank you. I just want to mention Sri Gurudev's teachings inspired me to create this children's book, Sparkling Together, also available on Amazon. The theme is universal love. And if you know children aged 5 to 9, it's a great teaching about attaching the love in your heart, no matter what the circumstance is. So I wanted to just mention as we close, prayer has a great means. It's one of my primary means for stilling the mind. And right now, a lot of us have been praying for peace in Ukraine. Here at Yogaville, one of our members is from Ukraine. He recently brought his parents over from Eastern Ukraine, and they're living here now at Yogaville. And so I'd like to just close with a prayer of peace for the protection and a return to peace and prosperity in Ukraine and for all the areas around the world that are experiencing conflict. May there be peace in and between nations, peace within and between individuals. Auspiciousness be unto all, perfect peace be unto all, fullness be unto all, prosperity be unto all, happiness be unto all, perfect health be unto all. May all see good in everyone. May all be free from suffering. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May the light of truth overcome all darkness. Victory to that light. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It was a very enriching experience. And as you go forth, please take the interfaith in your hearts and share it with all. Peace unto all. We have another minute or two, but I do want to thank Dr. Reverend Albert and his wife Abigail for having this platform for us to be on. And we have a couple more minutes if somebody else wants to say something.
I think Dr. Albert may want to say something.
Just the idea that this was one of the most wonderful programs. Each one of you is blessed, and we are coming to the last day of the last day of the 7-day program. And we've been hearing from people 12 hours a day. And the meaningfulness that you have brought to just to the world, I thank you for so much. I don't even have the words. You are wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Albert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Albert. I wanted to share a story about Rabbi Gelberman that came from the talks with Gurudev, Swami Satchidananda. One day, here I am, a neophyte yogi, and I'm watching Rabbi Gelberman have a discussion with Swami Satchidananda, and someone says, could you explain what a sin is? And so I'm leaning in because I'm raised a Catholic, and they're going to talk about sin. And Rabbi Gelberman says, what's a sin? It's a mistake. Don't make it again. And I'm sitting there stunned. I'm like, he's right. All this time I have been guilt-ridden, and I realized that a sin is a mistake. And you can deal with that. It transformed my life. So this is the different perspectives, the beauty of different perspectives, and how we can realize that greater truth through all of this gathering together. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
That was great. That was great.
1 o'clock now, so now it's time to sign off.
You know how hard it is to leave? When you're in such good company, it's very hard to pull away. I've noticed that. It's just like really, we don't want to leave this beautiful, purified, glorified air of togetherness.
We could go for Dr. Albert's virtual lunch. And right now at Yogaville, we're going to go for our real lunch.
There is a group in the New York Integral Yoga that does a peace program periodically. And this is a program where we pray for countries who are suffering at war, famine, and it's a wonderful, inspiring program. A number of the people here, like Darani, are leaders of the program. Darani, do you want to say any more about it?
Sure, briefly. This time around, we're praying for our Native American brothers and sisters and for the peace in all the First Nations people around the globe. And every month, it's a different focus for, a suffering population or a country at war. So September 20th is our next one. It's hosted out of IYI, New York. Our clergy this time around will be Reverend Leela, who is part of the New York Integral Yoga. And please look out for that and join us, please. Power of prayer.
Okay, thanks again, everybody. God bless.